right. Party on, dude. On to Sinners 2025. Trying to leave their troubled lives behind, twin brothers return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them back. Director and writer is Ryan Coogler, also known for Fruitville Station and Creed, and Black Panther movies, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. That's an understatement.
Christopher Nolan and his producing partner / wife, Emma Thomas, assisted Ryan Coogler in the shooting with the 65mm film.
Nice.
Swedish composer Ludwig Göransson.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
He better get some kind of award after this movie.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Is he the same guy who does The Mandalorian?
Well, I mean, hey.
It sounds like the same guy, I think.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
All these composers have these very unique, like, European names, so who knows?
Yeah, like northern Norway European names. He was Ryan Coogler's University of Southern California Film School classmate, who has scored all his feature films, including this film. Developed an appreciation for the blues from his father. The elder Göransson became a lifelong fan of the genre as Mississippi blues artists like Albert King toured Europe and stopped in Sweden. All right. That's what we got for some trivia. Pedro, you want to start us off on Sinners?
Yes. This movie was amazing. It was everything I thought it was going to be and more. We're going to get more into the spoilers side of things when we're talking spoilers, but just off the top, the characters, you found love with the characters right away. The writing, the metaphors in this movie, regarding like race and all that stuff. To me, like actually, the weakest part, if there is such a thing as the weakest part, was the vampire part, because it was the more by the numbers part of this film. Mm-hmm. But everything before that was like just an amazing like visual spectacle as well. Like just the cinematography with all those cotton fields, and it was like a timepiece. So you had like the 1930s era with the cars, just phenomenal stuff, And the story was good too, because here it's what the title says, right? Everybody here's a sinner. Like there was no actual good person in this movie when you think about it. Like everybody was out to make a buck, but it's also a reflection on what you have to do to survive, right? Depending on who you are, because these guys had to go up north, and I could spoil this because this is part. I don't think this is a spoiler, but they had to go up north to kind of make their money and escape, but at the same time they didn't really escape. It was the 30s. So there was this big theme of like coming back down to the devil, right? That was their whole thing, like because up north they were still being discriminated and oppressed in their own way. And then so like we're making the comparisons to From Dusk Till Dawn earlier, and yeah, this starts off one way where Ryan Coogler is just giving you all the little chess pieces, all the characters, right. so that when the shit hits the fan, you care about them more when things go down. And then the second half is when the shit really hits the fan, and yeah, like I said, that to me that's the weaker part of it, but it was still a great time because I love how reserved he is in the beginning. Like he's really reserved with the blood. Because he knows exactly what he's gonna do in that third act, which is just give it all to you, Oh, yeah. So this is a great film. I mean, it's again, I don't want to get too much into the story until we're talking spoilers, but just an amazing spectacle. It's funny because like with me, like when I went to film school, I was in production in my early 20s, and I rarely ever kind of go back to that. Like that's such an old part of my life. But this is one of the first movies where I started getting inspired. Like I started thinking of like my old characters that I've written, and I could make something of this shit, So I kind of became like that young guy again that was like so enthusiastic to be like a filmmaker,
getting the itch.
Yeah, and it was a great time. It was a great time, It's been, some people have been saying that it's a little too long. Maybe, I don't know. I didn't feel it, but it is 2 hours and 20 minutes. I love that epilogue scene that said so much, and we'll get into it. And yeah, so yeah, I love this film for sure, and that's why I wanted to come on here because I was like, we have to talk about this great movie.
Jay, what do you think?
Oh man, I'm right in line with Pedro, man. I got a little bit more to say about the Vampire by Numbers. I think we got to wait till we get into spoilers for that. I think there was a reason for that, and from what I saw, I thought it was perfect by the Vampire by Numbers, and I think there was a specific reason for that, as this movie kind of really centers not necessarily around the twins, but their cousin Sammy, right? And he's kind of at the center of it. And, you know, you got that first half of that movie, like you said, is building up. Like the chess piece, you're getting to know these characters. Fantastic setup. But the whole theme of it, you know, you want to talk about, shoot, man, I'm trying not to spoil too much about it. I mean, culture is a big part of this, is right. You know, about, yeah, I gotta keep tight with them.
Yeah, but even with the themes, like there's also like religious guilt in there, you know.
Yes,
sure.
Especially with the cousin, because of what he does for or what he wants to do for a living.
Right.
You know what his father, who was a pastor, tells him that could bring, and it actually does bring that. So there's a lot of guilt, you know. There's a whole thing of like religious guilt in there. There's a lot of little themes throughout the movie that I really loved.
A lot of mirroring as well. We can, and when we get into spoilers, I think the religious aspect and I think the vampire aspect were complete mirrors of each other. And then, you know, we'll get into that as we go in further. I just want to say though, Michael B. Jordan, fantastic as Smoke, as Stack, not so much. No, he fantastic. You know, every director has their go-to guy, right? You know, Coogler, Jordan is his guy. You know, Burton, it was Johnny Depp was his guy. You go to, and who do we talk about? Nolan. You know, for the most part, he has his group of core guys. You can say it's Christian Bale, but you can also say it's who's the butler? Michael. Oh God, who's the old guy? The old British guy. I'm forgetting his name for a minute now.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that's kind of like everybody.
Or it's like Cillian Murphy too. He works with him a lot as well.
Yes,
that's true.
Yes. Everybody has. I mean, if you talk about a Coogler movie, you know Michael B. Jordan's going to be in it. He was at Fruitvale Station. He was in there. Was it
all of them?
Movie?
Yes, he's been in all of them.
Oh yeah, that's it, and it works. You know, sometimes that partnership is absolutely fantastic, and this is one example where it absolutely shines on this as well. So, man, I love it when a director and he has that core of either actor or actors, and they just gel together, and you know you're going to get gold when the next one comes out. So yeah, fantastic movie.
All right, Brian, what do you think?
This is probably the best movie I've seen all year. The direction was on point, cinematography was on point. Every main character that had lines knocked it out the park. Michael B. Jordan, I thought he did a great job in dual roles. There was an easy distinction between the two. Even though they were identical twins, you can tell which one was which.
Oh, yeah.
And Haley Steinfeld, this ain't Kate Bishop. This ain't the Bumblebee movie. She stepped it up 100%.
It's True Grit. Yeah, it's like her and True Grit. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
And I just can't wait to get into spoilers. I agree with everything everybody said so far. This movie was phenomenal, and the runtime, it didn't bother me at all. I was so tuned into the movie that I not once did I look at what time it was.
Absolutely. One thing I noticed in the movie, and I don't think this is spoiling, and I can bring it up, is I noticed something, and maybe it seems like whenever you saw the twins together, I always saw two big ass birds flying around, right? And then when you first see the vampire, I won't spoil how you see him and when you see him, but when you first see him and you realize what he is, you see these three giant ass vultures just kind of spin. And then you get the three later on. I don't know what the symbolistic on that is, but I kept noticing it. I even whispered my wife and said, "You see those birds again?" And when you saw with the twins, they were by themselves. There was nothing in the sky, from what I noticed. Now, I mean, you got that wrong, whatever, but I just seemed to notice every time you saw them, two giant ass birds always circling in the sky. I don't know if anybody else noticed that.
Huh.
That's why
I did
this
not.
movie needs to be watched again. So
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
those little things. Yeah, and again, one thing that I'm a sucker for is these films that introduce all these characters that later on are going to be in the same place. And this movie takes its time with that. You know, you always, you know, because they both go. So we could say what's happening here. So what happens is that they wanna open up a juke joint, right? Which is like an old blues, like I guess you could say cantina that was specifically for like African Americans. So the twins have to assemble their team to run the business. You know, so they get Delta Slim, who's Delroy Lindo, who was amazing in the film.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
They get the cousin. Originally, the cousin is just like a helping hand, but then later on, he actually plays the blues. And then that's no. I take that back because I think it was Smokes was the one that discovered that he could play, right? And then he's like, okay, I want you to come with me so that you could join Delta Slim. He could play guitar with as he's doing the harmonica thing. And then they get the Asian couple to do like the promoting, right? The banners and all that stuff. And
can I say something real quick about the Asian couple? I love that they had Southern accents because if they grew up
Everybody did.
in the South, they wouldn't have Asian accents.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Take that interview with the vampire. They took care of their accents. And then obviously that one heavy set guy. What was he? He had the nickname, right? What was his name again?
Cornbread.
Cornbread.
Cornbread. Yeah, cornbread.
He got hired to be security. So yeah, so I like how the first part just assembled all this team, and you got to know the team, the entire team. And I'm a sucker for that trope. Whenever movies do that, I always get invested. You know, it's a cool. It takes a little more investing because of the time, but it's always worth it in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Lance, what'd you think? Oh, you already said.
I haven't gone yet, but I was a little bit concerned about going into this movie because sometimes you fall victim to that overhype, right? Like where you hear really, really good things about it from people that you really trust, and you're like, oh my God, don't let me down. So like from the very beginning, this was like a masterpiece. I mean, I don't think that anyone has. It may be an exaggeration. I don't know if any filmmakers ever achieved this level of filmmaking as far as technical expertise. There was one particular camera angle talking about the couple that had the daughter that owned the store, where they followed one character across the street. You've got all these back characters that you can see all this stuff going on everywhere. And then they go into the store, and then, you know, somebody comes out, and it's just like, wow, you know, it's just amazing. And then when you're in the juke joint, like when they're setting it up at the beginning, it's just, you see so much detail. There's so much attention to detail, and you see all the old brands like in the store, and you know this was painstakingly researched, right? You know the filmmaker painstakingly, you know, researched all this and had a team of people helping, I'm sure, you know. So yeah, technically this was like a masterpiece. I don't think they make movies better than this that are more beautiful. The acting was phenomenal. Michael B. Jordan. If this movie's not nominated I say it every year, but if this movie's not nominated for some serious Oscars, I'm fucking done with the Oscars. Period. But we haven't even gotten to the soundtrack yet. Potentially the greatest fucking movie soundtrack I have ever experienced. There was one scene in here that was, a lot of people are talking about it, but I literally went into a transcendental state. I left my body and I fucking got inside of that, and it was just beautiful. So the way they did that was perfect. If you watch the movie, this is one I really wish I'd seen twice before we talked about it. The 7 Deadly Sins are right there front and center to see. I love the title. You've got Sloth with the character that's, you know, and then you've got, you know, so much wrath. You've got, you know, all the 7 Deadly Sins. I'm going to rewatch it so I can catch all that. The vampire scenes, they weren't jarring though, Pedro. Like you said, it was a little bit different when you got to the vampire scene. It's almost like you were in one of those outstanding fucking 80s. You know what I'm saying? Like exploitation horror movies. but it didn't throw off the rhythm. That was what was so cool
It didn't
about
for sure.
Yeah. Now there was what. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say just to touch base on that first. When we talk about the first half of the movie, and the second half, complete little different. I would say the first half is, I would say it's borderline musical, right? I mean, it's.
And I love a good musical, Brian.
No, man, it was really borderline musical, because even the part, I think it was I forget, it was Smoker Stack who he was driving his cousin Sammy, and then I guess he kind of knew he played the guitar, but when he started playing, he started singing, you just saw the look on his face, like, damn, he was blown away. You were blown away as an audience, hearing his voice and just hearing him play that guitar. That was one of my favorite scenes. You could just see the shock on his face. It was like you said, he was a helping hand, and then now he became the main attraction, because he just realized, wow.
Yeah. And this movie, there was again, I wish I'd seen it twice, because there's so much symbolism in here. And then there's one scene early in the movie, and I'm with you, Pedro. I love that getting the band back together motif, or that road trip type motif.
Right.
The characters, but there was a scene where I thought, okay, cool, they're out working, and I'm like, okay, so this is a slavery movie, but it's not. It's 60 years after, and I'm like, holy fuck, that's a little bit eye-opening to think it was still like that in certain parts of the country. And then you got there's one line where they refer to what it's like in Chicago, and it's like not perfect there. And then you get into all the money is the root of all evil stuff, which, save some of that for spoilers. But there's a Kendrick Lamar album that I've listened to a couple of times lately. It's called To Pimp a Butterfly. And it's got a lot of the same motifs in it, like a lot of, using money to take people away from purity and, take them and make them into something that's sort of like, I don't know, getting away from humanity or getting away from your true nature. And it was just, I can't say enough about this movie. We better move on or I'll start spoiling.
Yeah, man, I think I'm gonna agree. The transcendental musical scene, and there were multiple of them, were all pretty awesome. I can't say a whole lot that I hate about this movie, man. We'll move on to spoilers. Oh well, I guess we gotta go scores first, huh?
Did Brian go? Brian.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear what you have to say.
I went.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, scores, Pedro. What do you think?
Oh man, I'm gonna go 10 on 10, man. I'm gonna and
strong words.
I've seen it twice, and I'm gonna see it again a third time before it leaves theaters. So 10 on 10 for me.
All right, Jay.
I'm gonna go 9.5. I rarely give out 10s.
That's cool.
If I see this a second time, I think it's gonna hit a 10. But I just saw it last night. I went to like a 6 p.m. showing last night, and I just saw it, and it's just I need to see it again. But this is easily. I don't buy movies for the most part. Rarely do I ever purchase actual movies.
Right.
This is one I'm buying right away, straight up.
Brian.
I'm gonna bring us back up. This is an easy 10 on 10 for me.
Woo.
Best movie of the year for me.
Lance.
You guys never hear this from me. I think we've reviewed one movie that I did, and I came to the podcast with Clockwork Orange being in this rare air for me, but this is it's a perfect movie. It's a 10 on 10. This movie made me realize, Brian, you're going to appreciate this, that they're just not going to light people on fire for real anymore in movies. Just get used to the CGI fire, because it's going to be there. And I was able to get past it and levitate up to a 10. So yeah, 10 on 10, perfect film. Mount Rushmore, big time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's perfect, but it was pretty good. I'm gonna go. I think 8.5.
That's nice.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
These are all A's and B's, So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, spoilers. Who wants to go first?
We're talking about the themes of money, right, and the contrast with money and purity. Also just with culture and cultural appropriation, because think about these vampires, what the bargain was, right? What the negotiation was is like, you never have to worry about being a person of color anymore. but look at what you have to give up to join us. You know,
We're
you
just
pretty
gonna
much
steal all your stories and your
exactly.
songs. You don't think
Exactly.
that was a little bit
Yeah.
racist?
Yeah, but that was the point, though, right? That was the point.
you're right.
That's the point.
Like, all right, let's flip
yeah.
some races and then see how this movie plays
that
out.
was the example that they were offering, because what I like about these vampires is that they were not racist. They actually were pretty even keel, except for the fact that at the end of the day, they wanted everything about you as a person of color. You know what I'm saying?
They were a little bit like the Borg.
It was just every other white person in the entire movie was racist.
Right. So I really like that. Like I said earlier, I like how nobody was actually a saint in this movie. Everybody had some blood on them. I like how Michael B. Jordan and both, right, Smokes and Stacks. And this is what makes a good actor. It wasn't written, but you could see he carries the trauma of not only being a World War I veteran, but also being up there with, like, because they mentioned that he was working with, well, they were both working with Capone, right, in Chicago. And then they never actually say it, but it's implied that they actually stole their money. They just have money. But
that's what I got. Not only did they steal from Capone, but they stole from the Irish mob and then let them fight it out while they stole their shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they scooted away. Yes.
Yeah.
Right, and I like how both of them had different personalities, right? Even though they were twins, Stax was a little more like rebellious, whereas Smoke was more of a business person, and so I really like that. Just everything about this film, man. Again, we'll go on and on, but it was it was a perfect movie. So what do you guys think about it? As I think of other stuff.
I like that final scene. I liked the setup with so one of them was wearing like the blue, kind of like a pauper's hat, like a working person's hat, and the other one had like a red pimp hat. And it's like it kind of telegraphed who was going to be the vampire in a way, but it sort of didn't. It's kind of played with your expectations. And a few different times, I love the Thing scene, Brian, where they were using garlic instead of the blood test with a wire. And I thought for sure, I was just grabbing AJ like, oh, when is somebody going to pop out as a vampire? I love that scene. I love the KKK blaxploitation scene there at the end with all the fucking Bloody Mary, Crazy Larry bullshit. And it's just the getting all the guns. And they referred to that before. They were like, we got the chest available. We're gonna need that for these guys, and they saved that for the end. And I'd forgotten about it, and I was like, okay, that takes it just enough over the top, Philip, that I think it kind of looks on itself. I think it sort of had to be there. That scene sort of had to be there at that point. Because what's so great about this movie is the way that he is able to like take incredibly serious character driven, parts of the movie and then mix it with the exploitative, 80s bloodbath gore. And then of course, that scene at the end where he pulls out the machine gun. So I think it was very well balanced.
Can we talk about
Tarantino scene, right? The end of the machine gun. I love that.
I thought of that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a little bit.
but even like the ending of the film, right, where Smokes gets shot up and then he passes away. He joins his wife and his kid who had passed away before. But you see the choice that he made, because look, the vampires were offering him eternal life, right? No stress, but he was never gonna be able to be with his wife and his kid again. So even in him choosing this very finite experience, which is life, he ended up joining his wife and his kid at the end. So in a sense, it was a happy ending, even though the bargain was like you get to live forever. He didn't want to live forever, because living forever, why would anybody want to live forever when you really think about it, right? So so that was another like thing that really got to me, just this idea that he made a choice knowing what the ending was gonna be. And I have to watch it again. I don't know if Smokes knew that this battle with the KKK at the end, I don't know if he knew that he was going to come out alive of it or not. Maybe he knew he was going to die because there were so many of them. But I do appreciate the fact that he made his decision to just being okay with dying, because there was something for him at the other side, and that was part of him and his belief system and his culture. So I don't know, all that stuff was pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, I think you hit that. I mean, because with him, it seemed early on the movie that his path was made based on his dad, right? Remember, said his dad was a terrible person, and we're going to be like our dad, and he's going to set this on this path. And that's where I kind of went into when I spoke about how the vampires are by the numbers. I think that was on purpose. And so it's about culture and it's about path. It's like, this is our way. It's our way or the highway. That was the vampire way. You're going to join us. You're going to join our collective, like Lance said. And then with his father, the preacher, the same thing. It's this way. This is our way. You have to choose this way. You can't choose your own path. And I think that's why the vampires with the demon, I think they kept calling it the hate, you know, that there was only one way to be a vampire, and you have to choose either this way or that way. And I think that's why it kind of revolved around Sammy, why he kind of had that decision to make his own choice. And that's why I'm saying they were mirror images of each other.
Crossroads.
Yeah, Crossroads. Yeah, 100%. And who made it at the end? I think it was Stack at the end, right? With the wife.
Stack and Mary.
Yeah, so I think he, along with Sammy, made that decision at the end. He didn't choose the path of he could have just laughed and said, you know, I'm gonna still do what my daddy did and all that stuff. But no, he broke out of that. He said, I'm not gonna be like that. I'm not gonna be like this. I'm gonna make my own decision and stand here. And that's the decision Sammy made at the end. You know, he went back to his dad. You know, he was all busted up. His guitar was busted up. He said, hey, Sammy, come join us. And he made his own path, which was that great post-credit scene, which you showed. And even the vampires as well. And if you notice, when that final battle between Sammy and the head vampire, when he smashed him with his guitar and he had that big old thing, you see everybody was hurting. They're like all holding their hands. Right? I think that kind of broke the spell. They were all part of one unison.
Collective,
And when it was Stack's wife said, you know, hey, these aren't people anymore. They're demons that are possessing whatever, they're gone. Turned out she was wrong. You saw that at the end of the post credit. You know, it was that with Smoke and what was her name, Mary Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah.
They were able to, once that head vampire was gone and that whatever that spell was broken, they were able to be their own people, right? They left him alone. You know, they didn't try to kill him. They weren't these raging vampires and all that. They kind of mirrored what like Louis in Interview with the Vampire, and that's why I thought it was a great pairing, because those two kind of mirrored his lifestyle. They made that choice. And even when it was brother against brother, I think he kind of broke the spell there, because he made that choice to listen to his brother. Said, let you leave them alone, right? And that's what he said. Hey, I made that promise to leave you alone till the end of your life. He made that decision as a raging vampire. So this was all about culture. This is our vampire culture. This is our Christian Baptist culture. This is our gangster life, you know, criminal culture. No, we're going to make our own decision. And I think all three of them ended up making their own decision, not going down the path that was predetermined for them by others. And I think they all, Smoke made that decision as a vampire and was able to live his life, seems peacefully, right?
Right.
I mean, it was a reunion.
Yeah. I was gonna say another scene that was amazing to me was because Sammy's father had told him that the blues bring the devil, right? The blues is evil. That was part of the religious guilt. And it you know, in a way it did, because they brought Remick, it brought the vampire. But I like that scene where we're seeing that trance, right, with all the different generations of music of African American.
Fantastic.
So now you're thinking. So now you're thinking, oh, okay, so this is kind of getting a little supernatural here, but it's not, because it was the whole time it was from the point of view of Remick. He's seeing that because he could see the spirits because he's a vampire, you know. And as they come out of the juke joint, you could see how Remick could see all that stuff, and they just show that big wide shot of all the vampires. Well, at that time, there's only 3 of them, and they're seeing what we're seeing, you know, inside. That was a great fucking shot right there.
Oh, I love that shot. That was probably one of the best scenes, just showing
future,
his future, his past, our future, you know, everything in the middle, just what music and what culture brings and what it does.
I really like the vampire musical number too.
Oh yeah.
With the
Irish That's right. Yes.
was pretty-
Yeah. It was what a great scene that was, man. And it was. I mean, that probably took days to film, man. It was just an amazing performance.
man.
Brian,
What about? I feel like we haven't really talked about that the girl from Low Key. The what's her name? She's got kind of a wacky name, but I think her name was Annie. Her name was Annie in the movie.
Okay.
The one that had all the spells. You know, she sold that snake oil to everyone.
Okay, sure.
I mean, her main purpose was for exposition, right? She's the one that's telling us what's happening, and every
like the witch doctor lady.
That was Stack's wife, right? That was Stack's wife.
His wife. Yeah. Her job was to kind of let everybody know what's going on, and you know, every film just kind of has a person like that because you need it for the exposition. But I thought she also did a great job because she was, again, no, in the beginning she was calling it the hate, but then that's completely different than vampires because then she corrects herself. She's like, oh shit, it's for vampires. But I like how Ryan Coogler wrote it to where they're all discovering what's happening. They just don't magically know. You know, there's corrections along the way.
Which is good, yeah. You don't see that all the time.
Going on.
Yeah. And again, well, she was wrong. You know, she said, hey, that's not your brother anymore. That's just some demon that's possessed him. And she ended up being wrong. And I love that. I love when you have the expert and they just don't have the easy answer. And, you know, they're the old grand, sage or whatever they are. And just, you got to, everything you say is gossip and you have to stick with it. I really, like you said, she corrected herself and then she was wrong about them at the end. And you saw that with Smoke and Mary.
She's also like, I'm going to cook up all these roots, but what you really need is holy water.
Yeah, right. That's right.
I like Remic's introduction. I thought it was very like unnerving and creepy because you have no history. Like this character just shows up towards the third act of the film. He's damn near burning up because of the sun, right? He's asking for help, and then you have, they said it, folks, not me, these engines going after them, and
what happened to them?
But
they got the hell out. They knew that they were smart enough to get the hell out when the sun came down.
They knew that it was nighttime and this motherfucker was gonna get powerful, so they bombed.
Well, right, but then I figured they would have come back into the story at some point. That was my only.
Well, there was only 2.5 hours, dude. I mean, and that's what AJ was saying. She said she wanted to know more backstory.
That's not the best time to fight vampires at night when they're most powerful.
Not always.
Yeah, maybe the engines were waiting for them in the morning. We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, right, but you brought them into the story, and then they just disappeared. I was like,
they took
they would have come back.
Yeah, I think they were just there to let you know how dangerous this guy really is.
Yeah,
and what the danger is coming. It's like now you know what's coming. You know. These guys know better. They're like, and when they're like, they're warriors, they're fighting this guy, and they're like, no, we're getting the fuck out. Let's go home. You know, there's some danger coming. They were the pre-warned.
And I do like what Pedro was saying about Jack O'Connell, I believe is the actor that played Remick. We didn't get a lot on him, but we got little stuff on him to tell us a little bit about his character, like when he paid with the gold coins, and she asked where did those gold coins came from, and he said from a different land or different time, which I think goes into the dance, the Irish dance, because that's just giving you more of him. Because
and then sometimes his Irish accent would come in very strong.
Very strong.
Come in and out. And I think that was on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, little details like that, man. Little details like that made this fucking movie awesome. You know?
This movie was a masterclass in accents, Pedro.
something that the vampire
don't
was
forget,
not.
The Irish got treated like shit also.
Absolutely, and I think that was folded into the story.
Well, he did make a comment about the Klan when he told them that this place is not a juke joint, it's a slaughterhouse, but we'll pay. He said we'll pay those bigots a visit later.
Yeah,
and he probably would have too. Yeah, I'm sure he would have. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the lines that I really liked that was I felt was like a very emotional line at the end when what with the cousin, what's his name again? Sammy. When Sammy's talking to Stax, right? When they visit him at the end at the bar, and he's like, before nighttime, that was the best time of my life. You know, for everybody, because everybody was free. For a little while, everybody was free before nighttime, and then it all went to hell. So he has the greatest
chaotic.
So he has the worst night of his life. The worst day of his life is both the best and worst day of his life. You know.
Yeah, he said that was the last time he saw his brother alive. That's the last time he saw the sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for both of them. That's right. For both of them, it was the best and worst day.
Yeah, I mean, for Sammy, that was his point where he became his own person. He became his own man. He was free of his dad. He was free of, because visually he wanted to be just like his cousins, right? And then you have one of his cousins, no, you don't want to be like us. You want to go be like your dad.
Right,
he was still giving him only the two options. So he wasn't getting it from anybody to be your own man and to be who you want to be. And that was the night that he got that decision. That's when he became free. So that makes total sense why, he said that's his greatest night ever, because that's what led him onto the path of what his life was. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I think we've talked enough, guys. I knew it was going to go a little long, but we don't want to go too long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any last words, Brian, Phillip?
No. I think we've covered a lot on this movie.
Yeah. Well, I knew we were going to.
Go watch it, people. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
All right, Jay. Thanks for coming by, man.
Thank you for having me. It was great seeing you guys again, man.
Pedro.
So much fun.
Pedro, always good.
Yep.
And for everybody else listening and I guess watching maybe on YouTube, thanks for listening or watching another episode of The Horror Returns. We'd love to hear your feedback and ideas. You can find us at thehorrorreturns.com. Next week, it's going to be video game movies, I think, which can either be sometimes really good or sometimes really, really, really bad. Right, Phillip? Like that one we watched for Is It Really That Bad? House of the Dead, remember?
Minecraft and House of the Dead.
Is that the two we're doing, Brian?
No.
It's Until Dawn and 2006 Stay Alive. So
okay.
How exciting, Jay.
I don't know that I've ever seen either of them.
Well, we will. Until the horror returns again, Jay.
Good night.